Proud of You is a parenting advice podcast and support group for dads hosted by two goofy dads. They are not pediatricians, nutritionists, OBGYNs, psychologists, nor are they authorities on parenting. They're just two dinguses trying to figure it all out. Their advice should not be taken as expert information. Parenting looks different for everyone, and there's no wrong way to be a dad. Frankly, if you're taking the time to listen to a podcast about it, you're already doing a great job. And these dads are proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Welcome back. I'm Derek Mata.
And I'm Andrew Goody, and we are proud of you. So what's going on, Derek? How's life? Things good?
Life is life. It comes and it goes, and it passes you by before you're ready for it. But the one thing that's been on my mind lately, and this is a hot topic. I would just want everybody to know this is a hot topic, and everybody will have different opinions on this one. But I feel like it needs to be touched on because as dads, I don't even want to say as dads, because you and I obviously have discussed what the topic is. Like, as parents, there's not a right or wrong answer to this. Child support.
Yep.
I do pay child support for two children. My brother pays child support for, God, I don't actually know, but he pays child support for a few kids. People everywhere are paying child support these days. Like it's pretty much the norm. You might as well count it up as everybody having a car payment.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, and like, obviously things are constantly changing, and everybody has different experiences, right? But like statistically, the divorce rate in America is upwards of 60% of marriages end in divorce, which means if you assume maybe half of those have kids involved, that's a huge percentage of the population. That's almost a third of the population who's dealing with child support on a regular basis.
And the thing is, like, child support is one of those things that people who pay it feel like they pay too much and don't have a positive experience, but people who receive it feel like they don't get too much and it's a negative experience. Yeah, it's one of those touchy subjects because, like, you have probably seen, I don't know, because our algorithms are going to be different. Now some people are like, oh, child support should be on a debit card where you can track all the spending. At one point I thought that, but I also saw the other side, like, that doesn't make any sense. Child support is supposed to cover everything from car payments to take your child, y'all's child, to and from doctor's appointments, to and from everywhere, house over the head. There's also, well, you can't put that on a fucking debit card. And food, well, food's just fucking expensive. Like, you can't, not everything can go on a debit card, but I can also see why somebody would say that, because how many horror stories have you heard about people taking advantage of the system, or the child support system?
Yeah, and I mean, I could see the argument for that. I don't necessarily support the argument for that, kind of like you're saying, right? But like, I could see how somebody would, especially, you hit the nail on the head, right? Nobody really feels good about the child support system, right? Everybody feels like they're being screwed by it. The people who are receiving child support feel like they're not getting enough. The people who are paying for child support feel like they're paying too much. And it's kind of one of those things where really what you're getting is restitution for a shitty situation, right? It's bad for everybody. Yeah. Here's some money. And I'm sorry if that's offensive to anybody. I do not have any experience with child support, thankfully. And so I don't, it's not something that I have a super strong opinion on, because it's never really been a part of my life. Right. But I can obviously see the argument for wanting, to hold your former partner, baby mama, baby dada, whatever.
It does go both ways.
Yeah, like it is. I think it is stereotypically a men paying child support thing,
Yeah.
just because of how our society is structured, right? Like, and just again, speaking purely statistically, more men walk out than women walk out, and more women get custody than men get custody. So by nature of that, men are going to pay child support more than or dads are going to pay child support more than moms typically. But
And
you know,
the one thing that, so because I've heard the stories and whatnot, when paying child support, they're like, well, I'm just going to get a lower paying job until the court proceedings are done. And they're like, no. The court's like, we know what you're capable of making. I know what I'm capable of making. I can't support myself.
yeah, that's
so
true,
like,
man.
for those of you who think it's on your mind, I'm going to fucking play the system. Let me tell you, the system already knows, because enough people have done it. There's a law written in there that says, hey, I know you can make six figures and you working $30,000 a year at McDonald's ain't it?
Yeah.
But
Well, and I think for, I don't know, man. You know me. I like to assume the good in people. I like to assume that most people are generally good. And I feel like for every person who's out there trying to game the system to pay less in child support, there's somebody who's struggling because the economy is in the trash right now and the cost of raising a kid is up 40%, but your child support's not up, because even if it was, adjusted for your payer, the person who's paying you child support getting a better job or getting an increase at their job, I almost guarantee you that they're not making more money than the cost difference of raising that kid, right? So somebody on the receiving end of child support is getting screwed right now by, inflation and corporate greed, just devastating the wage gap.
yeah, I mean, it's just, not because I'm not trying to put my own shit into this, but like, I know I've had many conversations with both of my ex-wives. Like they want just a little bit more. And I'm like, my pockets are turned inside out. I literally cannot give you more than I have. But I have heard many dads who the system makes them pay more than they make. And again, this is solely based on stories I've heard. This is not a him versus her, dad versus mom kind of thing. Obviously, I'm going to talk to more dads than I am moms as being a dad. But the dads are like, I live in my car because I cannot afford an apartment. And so that's when you really think about the system, like, man, the system's really fucked up. But if you were to talk to the mom, she's going to be like, this deadbeat dad's only paying me XYZ and I can't even, keep the lights on. Like, well, that guy's a piece of shit. Like, there's three sides to every story: your side, their side, and the truth.
Yeah.
But
And usually there's so much gray in the truth, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's typically people's side of a story is always going to be black and white, right? I'm right, he's wrong. I'm wrong, they're right. This, that. Whereas like the truth is usually a gradient scale, right? Typically when things happen, more than one party made mistakes, more than one party was responsible for the thing. There might be somebody who is majority owner of the responsibility. But that's, I have mixed feelings about the three sides to a story idea, because I even think that the truth is the truth, right? The facts are the facts, but even that is just open to interpretation, right? And that,
okay, I can see that.
that's what the court does, right? Is the court looks at, hey, these are the facts from mom, these are the facts from dad, or obviously parents can be of any gender, so whatever. But this is side A's side of the story, this is side B's side of the story. I have to be an impartial judge and look at what's best for this kid and figure out what makes sense. And I've heard stories similar to kind of what you're talking about, where people are just getting absolutely trounced because they're paying more in child support than they're making. And the overwhelming majority of those stories that I've heard, and again, this is all conjecture, it's when the legal proceedings for a separation and a custody agreement happened, the person was making more money and they lost their job, they changed careers, whatever, and either didn't put in the effort or didn't have good legal representation, and so they couldn't get their child support adjusted. Because that's the thing. I mean, if you're making six figures and you go through a separation and set up a custody agreement and you set up a child support agreement that's based on you making six figures and being able to support them with the salary that you have, and then you lose that job, and in this current economy you're just scrambling to get anything, and you pick up a job that pays you 40 grand, well, you just lost 60% of your income. You need to go to a judge and your ex and say, hey, I lost 60% of my income. We need to come up with a new arrangement because I can't afford anything, right?
So I'm gonna cut you off there. So while yes, in a perfect world, that makes sense. You have to think like the little child support they're getting, they're used to living off of that. Okay, because we're all making ends meet here. Like, how many of us are actually having a little extra to throw in the fucking savings? Like, not a whole lot of us. The majority of us. So I make $100,000. I lose my job. I get a $40,000 a year job. I go to my ex-wives and say, we need to work something out. They're going to be like, hey, we can't do that because now we have to suffer because you can't find a job. It becomes a me problem. Like,
yeah. So again, this is where good legal representation comes into play, right? Because at the end of the day, Emily and I are married, right? We share finances, we share income. If I lose my job, it affects both of us. Just because we get a divorce, it doesn't mean that suddenly me losing my job doesn't affect both of us, right?
okay, so I'm getting what you're saying, but you have to think that
No, I mean the legal system is fucked, right? And part of it I understand
I'm not
because
even saying like before you even get to the legal system, we're talking the kids here. Like you lose your job, you get a $40,000 a year job. They are now you're now telling him, hey, I need to pay you less, but it's affecting the child. Like before you get to that judge, they're like, you make me suffer, your child suffers. So then you're in the position like I need to now go find either two jobs that make $100,000 a year, or I need to go find that singular job that makes $100,000 a year, and that's just not possible nowadays.
and well, I mean 100%, man. But again, same thing if you're married and in that situation, right? Like if April lost her job tomorrow, I'm gonna knock on wood.
I was gonna say, fucking God forbid, do not say that shit.
But this is what I'm saying, right? Because it's a little bit different for me because we're a single income household. But like you guys are a dual income household. If one of you lost your job, like again, God's forbid, like
which I did. So use me as the example because I did lose my job.
Exactly. Okay, so
ago.
when you lost your job, it affected you, it affected April, and it affected the kids. If you and April split up, it's going to still affect those three parameters when you lose a job or when one of you loses a job, because that's how money works.
But it's
like,
okay.
You don't want it to. I understand. Like you never want your kid to suffer, right? And obviously, I'm projecting some negativity into this, so I apologize. But the person who you're paying child support to is obviously not going to want to get less money, right? They're going to pull the, oh, it's so you're taking food out of Timmy's mouth, right? Like
Timmy.
they're gonna make you feel bad to push you to go and get that higher paying job or to screw yourself more to suffer on their behalf, right? But that's just, I don't know, man. That's just not the way the world works. Like,
okay, so that again, let's use me as the example. I would, had two child supports to pay, and I was a single guy, a few years back. Obviously, I was capable of doing whatever I had to do to make sure that I could still pay them. Now, when I lost I didn't just lose my job. A while ago, when I lost my job, it was which one of my children suffered? The first one, the second one, or the three? I think
third and fourth. Yeah.
No. I'm thinking like, did I have two or three? Yeah, Ivy was born. Who suffers on this? Because if I can't afford to pay myself and keep a roof over my head, a wife and three kids suffers. which one of these two or both of them are they going to be like, hey, you know what, we understand your situation. I can tell you right now, again, I'm speaking blindly here, but I want to say like a majority of people who pay child support would say that neither of them are going to budge. So that means me and my family have to now do something.
Well,
So,
and
but it's you.
yeah,
I can't, again, I can't pay them less because again, it is still my children, regardless
yeah,
of how I feel about the individuals. I don't want my children to suffer, but I can't print money. I'm not the fucking government.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and it's, I mean, there's obviously there's a point of diminishing returns, right? Because like, um, and I can't caveat this hard enough. Like, I do not have the personal experience with this that you do, so I don't have the personal, I don't have any skin in the game. Um, but I am willing to work incredibly hard to provide for my family. I am willing to suffer in that sense to provide for my family. If I need to get a second job to keep a roof over our head because the economy is getting worse, I would. But you can only do so much, right? There's a point where you can only work so much. You can only make so much money. So it has to be reflexive of that. It has to be representative of the fact that like, hey, if I'm making, and again, obviously a drop from 100 grand to 40 grand is a huge difference, but I'm using that so to emphasize this point that if you lose 60% of your income, and there's no way, right? Like that $40,000 job is the best thing that you can find because the economy is so jacked right now. You're going to keep working to try to make more, but that's where you can get to. It is incomprehensible to imagine that you would still be paying your full amount of child support because it's going to be more than what you're making, right?
okay, so I get that sometimes, and not me. So like, not throwing my shit out there. So like, I
Yeah,
physically make the payments every single month. I go into my bank statement or my banking app and I pay those payments. A lot. I don't want to say a lot. I want to say I know there are people out there that is automatically garnished from their wages. So like they don't have a choice until they can get in front of a judge. But guess what? You get in front of a judge, now you're missing a day of work, assuming. Like
yeah,
you started a brand new job, you don't have the time off, you don't have the PTO, you don't have the XYZ. So now you're like, okay, so how am I going to take this day off to make this pay, to take this day's hit when I already can't afford life? And it's, again, the system is,
yeah,
is broken at so many different levels. I don't ever think it could be fixed. Like I want my kids to be taken care of. I'm not saying that I should be paying less. I definitely cannot afford to be paying more, but my kids deserve more. But I have kids across the fucking board, so like,
yeah.
special situation. But
Well, I
it's
wonder, you bring up an interesting point because you mentioned it before about, the laws that are in place and the case law to prevent people from, quitting their high paying
$100,000 a
VP
year
corporate
job.
job and getting a job at McDonald's through the legal proceedings. I wonder how difficult it actually is to get your child support adjusted because there has to be some contingency there, right? Of like, you can't just say like, oops, I lost my job and now I'm making less money. Please adjust this for me, because that falls under that same category, right? Of there will be a minority of people, there will be a small percentage of people who take advantage of that system to, get their child support payment lowered and then go find a higher job. And hey, when you find the higher paying job, you're not rushing to the court to change your child support payment. Like,
Yeah,
and I
there is a
wonder,
flaw there. Yeah.
yeah, I wonder how limiting that is. Because I know, and again, like in all situations where you're going to be fighting the legal system, no matter what side of it you're fighting on, have a good lawyer. The problem with that is if you're fighting because you just lost your job and you're making less money and you're trying to get your child support lowered, you probably don't have a lot of spare cash to retain a good lawyer.
Yeah, lawyers are fucking
Um,
expensive. Let me tell you, I couldn't
but
even tell you how much I paid, but it was too much.
yeah, but having good legal representation and somebody who fully understands the legal system and can fight for you to the best of their abilities is going to put you in the best position to have a fair outcome, right? Because what we're discussing isn't how to screw your ex out of the most money, right? Like, I don't think either of us would, like, God forbid Emily and I ever split up, or you know,
again,
you
like,
and
you're
your ex is
screwing
like
your kids at this point.
exactly. I don't think either of us would ever try to do that. There are definitely people out there who do, but it's just, again, it's fairness, right? If I lose my job, it affects my kids no matter what, no matter whether I have full custody of them or I have no custody of them, and I'm paying child support to somebody who has full custody of them. Like, that's just the way life is going to go. If I lose my job, it affects people.
Yeah, so it's just I don't I don't even know what to say, because again, you know, if this ever blows up and people hear me say like I hate the child support system, they're like, this guy's a piece of shit.
No, I mean, the child support system, you can support the idea of something and not like the way that it's being executed, right? I think child support makes a ton of sense because raising a kid is expensive and kids need things and kids cost money. So if you're not going to be in that kid's life, the person who is now fiscally responsible and you know, not even just fiscally, the time, right? Like, being a single parent is so hard and takes so much time and energy. Like, it, kids expense aside, you should be compensating the person who is raising your child because they're doing a hard job. uh like, and obviously there's a million different circumstances that lead to separation and lead to child support scenarios, right? I'm not saying that everybody who's paying child support did something bad and owes money to their ex or whatever. But you know, like, it is compensatory to pay somebody to raise your kid for you.
So because you mentioned earlier the current economy though, like, and that's what makes it difficult is obviously you want to compensate the other parent depending on the certain, you know, situation. You know, we're not going to go into all the finer details here. It's expensive to live as a single person nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, how is it possible? Like, oh, you know what? The cost of raising a child has gone up, so we need more money from you. Oh, but guess what? Wages haven't gone up, so now you're just taking more money from me, and
Yeah.
now I have nothing. Do you honestly want me to go sleep in my bank-owned car? Oh, I can't pay that. Now I'm homeless.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's one of those things. I mean, this is a topic for a whole other episode, and maybe we'll touch on it. But like, part of the reason why we're a single income household is because we looked at the finances, and like, for Emily to get a full-time job, we would have to have full-time childcare, and
we've looked at the same shit.
Full-time childcare costs more than most full-time jobs pay. So, like, you know, and that was the conversation we had is, hey, like, is it worth, like, you know, if it costs $30,000 a year to put Alana in daycare in a place that we trust, that is, you know, reputable and respectful and isn't going to totally just either one, throw our kid in front of a TV and ignore them for the day, or two, like, actively abuse her. Like, a good daycare is going to cost us $30,000 a year. If it costs us $30,000 a year for her to get a job that pays $40,000 a year, is it worth 10 grand to have somebody else raising our kid?
No,
Absolutely not. Not at all,
$100 a month.
right?
Like, yeah,
Like, it's nothing. We
missing
have
out,
no
man.
interest in that. And you know, obviously the dynamic changes if you're both in six-figure salary careers, right? Like, then that percentage of what you're actually taking home at the end of the day increases dramatically. But it's just, you know, the cost of childcare is so crazy, that it makes sense that child support is high, because that's part of what you're paying for usually, right? Is like, hey, if you split up and one of you has sole custody, that means one of you is a single parent, which means one of you is probably paying exorbitant childcare fees, because unless you have a really good support network of, you know, family or friends who can watch your kid while you're working, somebody's got to watch your kid while you're at work, you know?
Yeah, and like, you know, we've come into the same thing, and to kind of tie it all up, like maybe we all should, you know, it takes a village, right? We had an episode on that. It takes a village. Expand your network. I'm so fucking antisocial. I've got what, you and 2 other friends. And if shit hit the fan, like who do I call? And no, I'm not calling out you or any of the other 2, but like the bigger your network, the bigger like, hey Goody, I will pay you fucking $1,000 a month if you could watch my kid so that we can expand our career opportunities. Like, for one, it is cheaper than daycare. For 2, it puts $1,000 extra into your household. Like, build up on that. Like, build those friendships. I know as dads, we just kind of, we don't care about anything else by the time we get home, but that is the point of this podcast. We want us to come closer together for simple things. Hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar? To, hey, we're best friends. We live down the street. Could you help me help my family, help you, kind of thing. Like, it sounds silly, but it works, because you know what? You know what $1,000 extra a month could do for my family?
Yeah,
Fucking
it's huge,
lot,
man. Yeah,
you know, like,
well, and I mean, you make a great point, right? That like having a friend watch your kid or having a sibling watch your kid. One, it's a trusted source, right? Which, you know, I kind of touched on. And 2, it's win-win. It's cheaper for you and it's money for them. That is assuming that that's something that they're interested in, and obviously that is a whole other dynamic. But yeah, no, I mean, it's huge. Having that village is critical, and it's the way that humans are meant to live, right? We were never designed to live isolated lives. That's a very capitalistic thing that pretty much only exists in America.
yeah.
Like, you are supposed to have support networks. You are supposed to have downtime and people who will watch after you and care for you, and a work that cares about you as more than a cog in the machine and will give you time off to go to court to fix your you know, child support situation. Like, it's I definitely thought you were going to say it takes a village to eat the rich, because, you know, tearing down the system is not a one-man thing. But
that's a topic for another time, but I'm with you on that one.
I'm just saying, we unalive like 2 billionaires and all of a sudden it frees up a lot of cash.
Yes, but
and there we go from the algorithm. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man, and I'm thankful that I haven't had to be more familiar with the childcare system, because it's complicated, and everybody I know who is in the childcare system, whether it's on the paying end or the receiving end, has complaints about it and has frustrations and has challenges that they face.
And it will never be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, think positive.
Nope. wait, think positive. Who runs the legal system? Yeah, no, I'm not. That's not going to happen.
Fair enough. Well, thanks again for joining us for another episode. We really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you can do us a favor, like this video, share it, comment down below. We have our Spotify comments turned on now, so if you're a podcast listener, you can leave us feedback here as well. We'll try to throw some polls up and that sort of thing. We've been trying to reach out to our podcast listeners more. So in return, if you can rate our podcast on whatever your podcast preferred listening channels are, whether it's Spotify or Apple or I don't know, all of those other podcatchers that I used to use have closed. So
I don't even know
whatever.
There's Apple Music and Spotify.
We're distributed across all of the podcatching networks. So you know, wherever you're listening to us, if you can help us bump up in that algorithm, we always appreciate it. And as always, our socials are down below. If you give us a follow and a share over there, it helps us and it goes a long way.
That's right.
Until next week, I'm Andrew Goody.
And I'm Derek Mata.
And we are proud of you.